Hey, welcome back. So today I'm actually going to talk to you about why I became an energy healing practitioner. Hi, I'm Hession. I'm a medical intuitive and an energy healing practitioner. And one question I get a lot is, how did that happen? I mean, it's usually a little more polite than that. Like, that's interesting. How'd you get into that? Or where'd you learn about that? But it's not something most people grow up planning to be. So for me, like I think most people, it was a pretty circuitous road that got me here. And I thought I'd share that with you, and I would love to hear from you about how you got interested in this as well. So as long as I can remember, I would say I've always been very fascinated with people, right? Like just what makes us tick, why we do things, and looking under the surface to understand this thing of being a human being. And that first led me to study psychology, and I majored in psychology and social relations at Harvard University. And I graduated from there in 1985 with a BA in psychology. But I knew before the end of my studies there that while it was a fascinating thing to study, I didn't want to pursue it as a career, get a master's and a doctorate. I knew it wasn't right for me, but I couldn't have told you then exactly why. And then for the next few years, I started to discover and learn more about nutrition and natural approaches to health and healing. And I ended up in Hawaii with my brother and a bunch of other like-minded people, living on Maui, which is amazing, and learning and using a particular healing modality called body electronics. I had many very extraordinary experiences during that time. It was a real transformational period in my life in terms of my spiritual growth as well. And it really just blew the lid off for me about what's possible, right? Like what our bodies are capable of in terms of healing, how everything does just come down to energy and how much our past experiences impact our health and our lives. So while I wouldn't have called it energy healing back then, it certainly was the start of how I got here. Now, at some point during that time on Maui, I happened to pick up a book that a friend of mine had, and it was a series of lectures from the 1930s, I think, of a Russian philosopher named P.D. Ouspensky. That was the first and last time in my life that I picked up a philosophy book for a bit of light reading, but I'm glad that I did because it really changed my life. Ouspensky was talking about the field of psychology, and so he was talking about psychology back in the 20s and 30s, which was very much the time of behaviorism and B.F. Skinner, when a lot of the study of psychology was about studying what I would call the machinery of human beings, right? Stimulus, response, and all of that. On a side note, if you studied psychology at all, even Psych 101, you will have studied B.F. Skinner. He was a giant in the field, and he hugely influenced the development of psychology. And he was a professor at Harvard, and he was retired, but he still came in to give a lecture once a year when I was there, because I'm kind of oldish. So I did get to actually hear a lecture by him in person, which was it was quite a privilege. But back to Ouspensky, whom I never met, but who changed my life. He wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the problem with the field of psychology, and he was talking about psychology 50 years or more before I studied it, but I found it to be just as apt for me. He said the problem with the field of psychology was that it was entirely concerned with what is and not at all concerned with what's possible. Now, have you ever had the experience of hearing someone say something or reading something someone wrote and you say, yes, right? Like, that's it. That's how it is, or that's how I feel. That's what's happening here, but I just didn't have the words for it. Like this deep, deep recognition of truth for you. But it took someone else to express it for you. That's what happened when I read that. I thought, yes, that's why I didn't want to continue with the study of psychology, because as fascinating as what is for me, the purpose of exploring what is always in service to finding out what's possible. So what's possible for me, what's possible for you as an individual human being, what kind of growth and development and expansion is possible for each one of us. And also what's possible for us as a species. Like what else is Homo sapiens capable of, right? What can we become? And it became clear to me for the first time with this kind of clarity that what my life is about what's possible. For me, for you, for everybody. Now that exploration, that passion has led me to some pretty interesting places and pursuits. I became a massage therapist and explored what's possible in our healing from that very hands-on approach. I became the director of a large wellness center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with acupuncture and naturopathy and chiropractic and so forth. And I ongoingly get further training in different healing methods and transformational things like Reiki and creative healing. In 1998, it led me to Landmark Education and the Landmark Forum. If you've never heard of that, Landmark Education is a company that offers programs and trainings that further just totally blew the next lid off for me about what's possible for human beings and the potentially unlimited capacity each one of us has for expanding and growing as human beings, and for what each one of us has to contribute to the world. So I'm not going to get into that in depth in this video, but I will say that I recommend the Landmark Forum and all of their other courses so highly. I've taken courses there off and on for over 20 years, and I've never been disappointed in what else became possible for me out of each one of them. That also led me to really delve into the paradigm of coaching, and I became a business coach and consultant, and I worked with a company called Business Breakthroughs International, which was owned by Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, who you may have heard of. So while I was still in the realm of growth and development and what else is possible, I'd left the healing arts for a time, and I didn't really know if I would be doing that again professionally. But along the way, in 2014, I happened to meet Dr. Bradley Nelson, who's the author of The Emotion Code. He's an energy healing educator and developer of the healing modality called the Body Code, which is the primary healing modality I use in my work. I fell in love with it, and so I went through the training process to become a certified Emotion Code and then certified Body Code practitioner. So it kind of came around full circle for me that way. I also realized in the past few years that I am what I will now call a medical intuitive. So I find that I often just know what's going on with someone, what part of their body has stuck trapped energy, for example, or what negative belief they're holding on to that's holding them back. And this intuition is very useful in working with people and identifying and clearing permanently the imbalances that are affecting their health and their lives. If you're thinking that sounds pretty cool and I wish I could do that, I want you to know something. It was probably 25 years or more ago when I first heard the term medical intuitive. And that's exactly what I thought. I knew it was possible from so many things I'd experienced myself, but I knew that I couldn't do that. It took decades and this whole circuitous route that I've described to you to get me to realize that I can. It's just there, that intuition and knowing. I just needed to learn to trust it. So it's not like I hear a voice telling me what's going on. I don't see a picture or a movie unfold in my head. I don't look at someone and see lights or stuff in their bodies. It's way more subtle than that, which is why I never thought it was real or worth paying attention to. It literally will just be a thought that comes into my head or a sensation in my body. And the process of learning to trust that subtle thing has been probably the hardest skill that I've had to develop in all of these years of exploration and training. So I'm telling you this because I don't think I'm any more intuitive than you are. It's you who's watching this right now. I just think I've learned to pay attention and to trust what comes up. And so if all of this interests you, if you feel you are a healer or you want to be one, then you should explore this. There's so many great resources to help you. I've listed some of them down below, so feel free to go check those out. So now, to my surprise in many ways, I spent a lot of my time doing energy healing work for all kinds of people from all over the world. Since energy healing can be done remotely, I can work on anyone, anywhere. I get to participate in the healing process for each of them, help them to not just heal physically, but to explore and expand who they are and what's possible for them. Beyond what they ever saw before, and contribute to what I see as the expansion of what we as humans are capable of. I see the expansion and development of human consciousness, and I mean all of us, as the most important work of my life. And there are many ways that a person can do that. This is just one, but it's one that suits me very well, and I really love it. So I'd like to leave you with this. Years ago, it was in a Landmark seminar actually, I went through an exercise where we each created a charter of our lives, what our purpose is and why we're here. Because ultimately, it's each one of us who gets to create and declare that for ourselves, right? It really takes something to look hard and get at the core of who you are and what you stand for, but it is so worth doing. So I'd like to share with you what I created as my personal charter. My purpose in life is to forward the evolution of human consciousness. The values that are at the core of who I am are, number one, choice. And I say that that's the power to create and embrace your life in every moment. Self-expression, the freedom to be, to explore, to express, to declare, and to celebrate all that you are. And lastly, unity, being present to the oneness of everything that exists. What I can be counted on for is to honor everyone and everything, and to play full out with life itself. And that is the personal charter of Hession. It's been my honor and really a pleasure to share my story and my purpose with you. And I can't wait to hear from you about what brought you here and what you and your life are all about. So now you know a bit more about me and how I ended up here. I'd love to hear your story about what got you interested in energy healing, so please let me know in the comments.